Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, I'm excited to have Oliver Libby on the show. Hey, Oliver, how are you?
I'm great, Ben. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the time and for joining us today. Oliver Libby is the managing partner of HL Ventures. He's also the chairman and co-founder of the Resolution Project. We're going to go deeper on both of those organizations and what Oliver has been working on. But let's just say we're going to be talking heavily about impact investing, being purposeful, positive social change, and how we can bring that forward through a new approach to venture investing. But before we get into some of that stuff, let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell us about how you got going and the evolution of your career.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm a huge fan of what I've already seen here on Uncaged, and I'm delighted to be here today. So, rolling back the clock to the very beginning, I am a little bit of the odd duck in a family of otherwise mostly doctors, scientists, and educators. My grandparents and parents, who I grew up with, I'm very close with, are all well-known scientists who've advanced the frontiers of human knowledge, and so that's the dinner table I grew up around. We're a pretty multinational crew with roots in Europe before World War II, and actually those who made it to New York City are the ones who mainly survived that time, and so we have a great allegiance to New York and to America. But it was a really interesting upbringing, and the theme that you'll sense resonates through the rest of my life is I was never pushed to be a doctor necessarily, although I'm the only mister in the whole family. But the idea, right? The idea, and I deal with that sometimes, but the only motivating factor that they really wanted to see was that my sister and myself would have a positive social impact. And whatever you do, do it well and help people. And so that's been a resonant thing in my life. I oddly took a turn into the world of, if you can believe it, national security. I thought that conflict was a big disease that maybe I could help to solve a little bit. I spent some time in that world, but ended up ultimately realizing that it was a very big intractable problem for a very young person. And so I ended up wending my way into working with some friends who had startups, and really loved the building of new entities. I was always the kid on the playground in elementary school who would start the little business on the side or organize the game. And so I love entrepreneurialism and innovation, and happened to have entered my professional career bent at a time where that became very current, right?
Yeah, I love that. I resonate. That idea resonates with me. As a kid myself, I was also the one who always was working on some type of scheme to make some money or to start a business in some form or fashion. And so I think that is always the genesis, I think, of many entrepreneurs, and certainly it warms people to that. I heard recently about a kid who had set up a business where he was selling Chick-fil-A sandwiches on Sundays because they're closed on Sundays. And I was like, that's genius.
Genius, disruptive. I love it. It's disrupting the Chick-fil-A sandwich. But it's funny you should bring that up, because actually kind of bringing us up to today, that experience is what launched the two organizations you mentioned. So during the time of the global financial crisis, you kind of either had the choice to go maybe head to grad school or figure things out in your life, or to start something disruptive. And I had realized that my talent was not necessarily having that one idea that was going to be a business, but helping other people realize theirs, kind of like a Sherpa to
That's
entrepreneurs.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's go a little bit deeper on HL Ventures first. Let's go through kind of like how you guys operate that fund. How do you build kind of an impact investment portfolio?
Yeah. So, when we launched HL Ventures, we launched it as what would now be thought of as a venture studio. At the time, there really wasn't an understanding of what that meant. There were a couple of other shops in the country, like BetaWorks and Idea Lab, and that were doing that, but no one really knew what it was called. But the idea is that you help entrepreneurs from very, very early stage, almost at the napkin stage, as we say, and you surround them in all the different forms of capital that help someone build a business. So it's not just cash, it's also relationships and experience and services, and that would give you a much better than even chance of having a successful venture and of properly supporting the entrepreneur. So that's really how we're structured at HL. We're now, 12 years in, kind of a company building ecosystem. You can think of us as having like a Swiss Army knife of things that are useful for entrepreneurs. So we provide managed services. We have a big platform team. We do invest in almost all the businesses in the studio as well, but it's all in service of supporting the entrepreneurs. And particularly, and I know we're going to get into this, I'll pause on this, but particularly because we work a lot with underrepresented founders working in impactful businesses, although unabashedly, we're all trying to do this for profit, right? Those particular founder communities and subject areas sometimes need a surrounding with a little bit more supporting connectivity than your kind of Silicon Valley, cast of characters.
That's excellent, and I see how that links very well with what you're up to at the Resolution Project as well. I mean, I see that that's a global nonprofit fostering youth leadership development. I'm imagining that there's very much of a strong connection with that leadership development and the social entrepreneurship that you're working on the other side as well.
Yeah, the DNA between HL Ventures and Resolution Project is definitely there. They're separate organizations, but they come from the same place, right? Which is that supporting people and helping them get that first believer and that first leg up and a set of resources is really important. And so at Resolution, we're just doing it for college students, and there we've helped something like 600 college students in I think 23 states in America and 82 countries to get started. We don't as much care that those social ventures be for profit or not for profit. And so there's a mixture. But again, we're giving them their first grant and then tons of mentorship and support. And it's all that, again, surrounding the entrepreneur with all the things they need. That's the hallmark of what we're doing there.
So it's interesting because I think that when organizations like HL Ventures got going, as well as I think the Resolution Project, there was it was like early stages of people trying to think about new business models that had more meaning, right? I think back at that time of 2008, 2009, yeah, people were doing good things, but in some ways it was almost like still the world of making money and then maybe giving back a little bit. And I love what you're doing at HL Ventures and the Resolution Project, because I think they're both really good examples of a trend that's happening today, which is a successful business is a purpose-driven business. A successful business is a social change business. And I mean, how do you guys look at that? And how is what you're doing, how is it important for business today?
Well, look, I think we were on one of the great trends in the change in business earlier than most, and that trend is now, as you say, so much of the mainstream business and mainstream asset management are moving towards social responsibility, sustainability, ESG measurement. But I love to go back and think a little bit about like what the genesis of a topic area might be. And when you think about kind of what we talk about as impact investing and social entrepreneurship, the impetus for that came from a little bit left field, right? It came from the philanthropic world. It came from media pushing for certain outcomes. And so for a long time, your hardcore financial and innovation practitioners were like, we'll do the work of making money, because the model has always been learn, earn, and return, right? You spend the first third of your life learning, then another third making a bunch of money, and then the last third, you can give it all back to the community. And that's been Rotary clubs and churches and all that's been the model for a long, long time. And only recently have people said, like, well, wait a minute, why does it have to be split up that way? Like, why can't you just push everything? We're going to be lifelong learners, we're going to be lifelong earners, and we're going to be returning to the community from day one as well. And so that, I think, makes a big difference. And if I can share one more point, it's, we live in an era now where the major industries that humans have created can influence people and the planet in ways that were never the case. Like in 1850, we weren't talking about like planetary impacts of particular industries. Now we have to contend with that. And so it makes sense for us to become, for example, in America, the dominant power in sustainable materials and sustainable energy. Why would we not do that? Because that's going to be what saves people on the planet. And by the way, it's going to make a ton of money for our economy and for the innovators and entrepreneurs who are doing it.
I love that. I don't want to have you kind of highlight any one of your children more than another, but what are some of the businesses that you guys are involved with that you're really excited about?
Yeah, man, thanks so much for that. I mean, as you say, but actually one of the funniest things about venture capital done the way that we do it at HL Ventures and the way that we support entrepreneurs at Resolution too, is that because we're devoted to them for the entire entrepreneurship journey, sometimes their darkest day is our day to shine to help them, right? So it's not like we're just waiting at a board meeting for positive results, and if things are going bad, then we're just not going to help them.
Yeah, you don't answer your phone.
Totally. So for us, so what's interesting about that is sometimes the companies that are in the worst trouble in June are your highest performers the next January. So you never know. I'll tell you, I'm excited right now. This is very timely. We had yesterday the announcement of our Opportunity Fund co-leading around in a company called Holler. Holler is a really inspiring company. It's actually in the social media space, which is another reason I bring it up with you, a maven of the space. Holler is founded by Travis Montague, who's a real visionary. He happens to be a Black entrepreneur, although he'd be the first to tell you he's a tech entrepreneur who is Black, not just a Black tech entrepreneur. But what's interesting about Holler is it's in the social media mobile messaging world, but it is a company that holds no PII and is not monetizing your data. It's about a completely different and more ethical view of social media. And that's where that industry has to go. So in HL Ventures, we're investing in, renewable energy, sustainable materials, financial inclusion, and in ethics in technology. And that's one of the hallmarks of Holler, which has been, doing extremely well. I think because of that, not in spite of that. And Travis's, visionary leadership has been really exciting to be a part of as well.
Yeah, I know Travis. Travis is really excellent, and what a great journey to be on, and what a great leader. I mean, that's a great example of an amazing leader to support for sure. So, I'm going to change gears a little bit here and talk about this last year that we've all been living through. It's been an interesting one, and I imagine with early stage entrepreneurs, there's probably been a lot of therapy that you've had to be involved with as well. But I mean, how have you been able to manage the pandemic with your portfolio companies, and as well as the nonprofit that you're leading? What have been the key learnings for you?
So first of all, let me say it's been, the last 12 months plus have been a time of, enormous suffering and tragedy around the world. And many people I know have suffered directly, and all of us, in the change and the lockdown and all that. It's been a trying experience to a greater or lesser extent. I am very thankful that because HL Ventures has never been focused on one geography, we have companies throughout the country, and Resolution 2 has entrepreneurs all around the world. We were already quite virtual as organizations. So, I miss seeing the team every day in the office, believe me, and we certainly miss out on some of the flow state of being in the office together and checking in for 2 minutes after a call. But really fundamentally, we've been efficient, if not more efficient, frankly, working from home in certain ways. And with our entrepreneurs and the Resolution Fellows too, like a lot of it has been listening to them, understanding what they're going through. And it's been a huge variation band. So we have, in the venture world, perhaps because a lot of the companies are very well funded, and are spending down cash balances. So it's not like, the corner bodega or a restaurant, like they don't hold the $1 million in 12 months of burn. So when the pandemic washed over the venture industry, you saw venture firms move aggressively into helping their portfolio companies doing extension rounds or bridge rounds. And then when everyone had a bunch of cash in the bank, people were able to just continue iterating. So it's not that there was no damage, it's that it was mitigated by the way we're structured compared to a lot of other small businesses that are in much greater danger. On the resolution side, a lot of the international fellows were in really trying circumstances, couldn't get access to medication for their parents or food. So we launched an emergency fund for that for the first time in our 12-year history. And that was really successful. But I'll tell you this, I think, if we live in the world of innovation and social impact, and times of great trial and disruption are moments at which those things are more relevant than ever before. So we feel like we have a role, we have agency. This isn't just happening to us. We are, like jujitsu, we're taking the energy of the crisis and turning it back towards positive impact and supporting the folks we're out there with.
That's great. I mean, it's been a learning moment, and I really feel like there are a lot of businesses that are coming out of the pandemic with a focus on things like diversity, equity, inclusion, really kind of, I would say, building the genesis of a startup from a different place with a different team, maybe a more diverse team, which is really where you guys play. And so I'm excited to see how things are going to shape for you guys in the future. With that in mind, as you think about this moment where we're now seeing people come out of COVID and vaccine rates are increasing quickly, what are your hopes for 2021 and beyond?
I mean, I'm a natural optimist. I think, the irony is, in venture capital, you have to be both an effective skeptic and also an optimist. So those both live within me. But naturally, I'm a person who sees the glass half full. And so, coming out of a time of, again, great suffering, you've seen some remarkable achievements. I mean, again, nothing that I've done, but my great uncle and my grandfather were both Nobel laureates in immunology, and my great uncle discovered messenger RNA. So to see their research, which is so academic and far from people, be in everybody's arm, literally. Messenger RNA vaccines are what's working, is just a moment of looking back at my family's work, and to see that impact be very real it generates a lot of hope in me. And it kind of motivates me to do the work that I'm doing now with these entrepreneurs who are advancing the ball to help save the climate, or help get to the bottom of the pyramid and include more people in the financial system. It's so many things that we're doing to reinvent social media, et cetera. And I think what you said is really important too, Ben, which is, I mean, you're one of the world's experts in the social media world and how people build visibility. It's now possible to do that from anywhere in a way where the tools were there before. But now we're going to be able to see entrepreneurs and people get out there, get known via, geographies, for example, that are much more diverse than just like a San Francisco. So I think that there's just a lot of hope right now. There's a lot of achievements happening. America's achievements on inventing the main vaccines are historic, unbelievable. And so we can look towards the failures that we've seen and learn from them, and then celebrate the achievements. And the last thing I'll share with you, long answer, I know, but at Resolution Project, we spent 12 years talking about a global leadership crisis. And it sometimes can be a little rarefied, right? It's like, oh, what does that really mean? Does it matter if people are leaders, or are events just going to continue to trundle along because the inertia is so powerful in the world we have now? Well, guess what? Leadership matters. We saw that in spades in the last 12 months. And so what we're doing, supporting leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators, I couldn't feel more important right now. And I feel very lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really key for the short term and the longer term as things take a new shape. And I guess I have kind of a quick question. So with all of these startups that you work with and all of these early stage leaders, are they rushing back to offices, or do you think that they're going to continue to work remotely? How's that going to play out?
Look, first of all, no one knows the exact answer to this. And actually, I've been most interested in the fact that the large organizations are putting things off until, Q3, Q4, even beginning of 2022 now. That's a little surprising to me.
Yeah.
But look, among the entrepreneurs, I mean, goodness knows that the big real estate expense is like the first thing that people were delighted to deep six from this crisis. And the startups were already, heavily active on, even if they were in the office. I mean, we were joking around before the pandemic that people would join a Zoom call or a Google chat, even if they're all in the same office. So I think what we're going to see from this, Bant, is a hybridized system. I think we do miss the collegial aspects of having an office and being together. I think we will see conferences come back because we do want the interaction. If you're closing that big deal, you want to shake somebody's hand. There's something human about that. But what it means is a lot more flexibility. So as I think about my team members on the days where, some of them just start cranking through introduction calls with dozens of entrepreneurs, does that need to be done in the office? I don't really know. I don't think so. So we haven't come to a final conclusion, but I will tell you, I think a more hybrid workforce in innovation was already happening. And like so many crises, COVID just accelerated the trend.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there were certainly parts of businesses that were heavily remote already, like developers and development. But now that's very much shifted and become the norm, and in a positive way. I mean, maybe this is part of that ability of marrying, kind of using technology to live in a more human way. So we'll see how it all plays out. But Oliver, it's been amazing to talk to you today. We've been talking to Oliver Libby today on UNCAGED, which is a program that provides a voice to executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Oliver, if anyone wants to learn more about HL Ventures or the Resolution Project, where can they find you?
Absolutely. Would love to connect with folks at HL Ventures. We're very easy. It's www.h-l.vc, like venture capital. At Resolution Project, we're just www.resolutionproject.org. We're also active on social media, and the Canary team has been wonderful allies in that. So really thanks to you and your great crew. And then, I write and speak sometimes, and you can find that at oliverlibby.com. And there's ways to get in touch with us through all three of those sites.
Excellent. Well, listen, Oliver, it's been really, really enjoyable to talk to you today about everything that you guys are working on. Impact investing is critical for our short-term future and the long-term future. And I'm glad that you're spending your time making that possible for folks. We've had Oliver Libby on the show today. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much. Have a great time, and really appreciate doing this.
Cheers.